I will tell you the story. I've never told the story. I'm now going to reveal what brought down Ted Baker.
You are the founder of Ted Baker, one of the biggest brands in the world. During the MeToo movement, lots of people were being sort of called out, and then you were out, and it was to do with hugging.
Okay, I suffer with a condition. I couldn't use my hands. I'm going to create a hug culture. They weren't forced to hug me, for goodness sake. Everybody in the fashion industry knew that I hug people hello. Overnight, the world changed. There was an online petition. I have, on my mobile phone, 20 signatures that have been faked.
Did you have, it was sort of women sitting on your lap, is that true?
Andrew, 3,500 people lost their jobs. I know people that tried to commit. Did I ever sleep with anybody in the office? No, my wife sat next to me for 20 years. What the heck could I have been doing wrong?
I know it's annoying when creators ask you to subscribe, but since I started, the channel's grown 10 times faster. If you don't sub, YouTube probably won't show you the next episode. It's free and takes 2 seconds. Hit subscribe. You've never done an interview like this, not a long form interview even before, I don't think. And certainly since what happened, which we'll talk about, I don't think you have done. So why now and why this show?
I've watched your show. I think you're cool. I think you're a very nice chap. I think you'll give me a fair airing. I've always been camera shy. I've never done any television or TV work. I always wanted my life to be about the business, the brand and the people. I didn't want to be that guy and be that wealthy guy and being famous for being particularly good at doing what I was doing. I was to be about the brand. So the energy went into the brand. I didn't call it Ray Kelvin, did I?
No, called it Ted Baker. So you are the founder of Ted Baker, one of the biggest brands in the world. Let's first, before we go into what happened a few years ago, let's go into how you started Ted Baker. What did it just come from nothing? What happened?
My early life, I started working in my grandfather's shop in Enfield. I learned retail. I spent more time in the shop than I did at school. And I remember my mother, God bless her, who's in the big department store in the Sky, who worked with me at Ted Baker, Ted's mum. She used to wear a little badge. Ted's mum, I taught him how to tie his boots. And she used to work in Wayne at Harrods. She was a character. People still come up to me. In fact, somebody spoke to me yesterday. I was talking to some people in the industry and somebody said, I've met your mum in Covent Garden store. Was it really your mummy? And I said, yes, it was. And I get quite emotional because my family taught me business, taught me retail, taught me the shop. And my mother was born above the shop in Edmonton. My grandmother went into labour and she had a big suit customer came in. We only had a suit customer, I think, in the 50s and 60s once a month. So my grandmother wouldn't go to the hospital even though her waters had burst.
Bloody hell.
So my mother was born above the store. And our life was all about the shop, about the business. We couldn't go on holiday because the window dresser was coming. Couldn't go here because Cyril, the accountant, was coming. The life was the shop. It revolved around Friday night dinners. Every conversation was centralised on the shop, the business, what sold, what didn't sell. So it was in my blood. And it was always in my family. I told somebody this story just this week. My uncle Tony, who I adored, had a very nice Jaguar car because he did very nicely. But he went to work in the old Ford Escort. He didn't want to show out. And I always felt that way. I didn't want to create any form of envy, jealousy, and a show of wealth. Was just, it's not the way we are in my family. Just let's play it low, let's do nicely, and let's have a democratic business where we could really look after people.
Is that why you did away with private offices and things in Ted Baker?
All open plan. No private offices. It was a community open plan office. It was very, very special. But before that, I was in the white goods business, the white label. I used to supply the high street Topshop, Miss Selfridge, Dorothy Perkins with clothing with their brand, and I really didn't enjoy that. I didn't enjoy that at all. So I had the chance to develop my own brand, and I did it with the help of Ted. People ask me who Ted is. Well, once again, I didn't want my name, but it started really, I think, because I thought, why would I think it was going to be a success? So I hid behind the name Ted Baker. For the first reason, I didn't want to be Ray the Bankrupt. I never thought it was going to work, right? Why would it? These 1 out of 1,000 businesses come through. I didn't want to suddenly be Ray Kelvin Bankrupt. So with the help of Ted Baker, and it was Bakervich.
What?
He was from Poland originally, the family.
As a person you knew?
No, well, it's an old Jewish thing that we used to shorten our names. It made it more easier when we came from Europe. It was easier for people to pronounce our names. So my mother's name was Leknovich, and it became something abbreviated and shorter. Well, if it had been Bakervich, you're probably not aware of this, Andrew, but when you rent a shop on Zone A. The Zone A is the front of the store. So the wider the shop, the more rent you pay. So if you have Bakervich, not Baker, you pay more rent. I tried to change the name to It.
A.
That would have been good, wouldn't it?
Yeah. You knew someone called Ted Baker and you thought it was a good name.
Yeah. There was a guy, an old friend of mine, who went to America as himself, and he didn't do very well as himself.
Yeah.
His name was Richard. And it was his year off between university and going into work. And his boss in his company said, you know what, you're getting a lot of people, a lot of the people you're phoning, you're doing cold call selling. They've been a bit rude to you, aren't they? He said, you know what, change your name. You won't take it so personal. So he changed his name from Richard Artis to Ted Baker. And sure enough, he started to do well. I remember telling him that story, and I said, Ted Baker is born.
This is a paid collaboration with MyHeritage. Many people feel disconnected from who they are and where they came from. MyHeritage offers a way to explore that through science and family history. And during the holiday season, the DNA kit is just £25. They state clearly in their privacy policy that they will never sell or license your genetic data. Okay, now it's time to do the test. I'm going to start putting all the swabs in, sending it off, and see what comes back. My ethnicity estimate came back as 65% Central European Ashkenazi Jewish and 35% Eastern European Ashkenazi. It's something I'd always vaguely known, but seeing it mapped out like that was surprisingly moving. Seeing it visualised gave those old family stories a kind of weight I didn't expect. And at least I know I wasn't secretly adopted, especially since my mum showed up in my DNA matches, along with people I didn't even realise I was related to. So click the link in the description or scan the QR code. By using my code Andrew25, you're not just getting the DNA kit for £25, you're also getting a 30-day free trial, free shipping, the Ancient Origins feature, and more. It's amazing how that started. And then we had this amazing brand. What's so special about a Ted Baker shirt? Could this be a Ted Baker shirt, what I'm wearing?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Well,
how do you know? Do you know it's not?
Yeah, oh yes. Well, I don't know today because today I'm not involved in Ted Baker.
This is from 10 years ago, this shirt. So
yeah, that's not Ted Baker, is it?
No.
No.
How do you know that?
Because the buttons aren't dyed too much. And it's too formal. It's very, very nice. It looks like you got bar mitzvahed in it, but it's trying. But it doesn't look like a Ted Baker shirt. So I started the business. I had this affinity to shirts and fabrics. I'm crazy about fabric, crazy about colour and design. And I started just making shirts. In those days, in the late 80s, there were specialist shops for selling one-off, singular products, tie rack, sock shop. And I thought I'll open the first shirt shop. And I created collections built with stories. So, for example, we had a collection. We had a travel collection, which were casual shirts. We had a business collection, which were classic shirts, similar sort of to that. And then we had wild shirts. Modesty and etiquette forbid that we disclose the name of the long-legged, beautiful prison model who first taught Ted the secret of fashion. Suffice to say, she's married to a minor Hungarian prince and has totally reformed her libertine ways. Later, as she sat, draped in a little bit of just a smile, draped in a smile. It's a long time since I've done that. Sipping Krug 34 as the sun rose over Notre Dame. Tiddy, she said. A term of endearment which was what he wasn't fond of, but in the French accent didn't sound quite so bad. The secret of fashion is to lead, not to follow, but never to lead too far. We created stories over each category with the help of Ted.
That was one of the stories.
That was for the wild shirts, which were the fashion shirts. And we created stories and scenes to design into. So there was a real tremendous narrative, a fantastic I haven't told that story for about 12 years. It's amazing how that goes back to 1988, and I nearly remember it.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is a remarkable, and you seem to be well, I don't want to say genius, but in your field, one of the top people.
I don't know about that. I had a fantastic. I think, if I'm allowed to say, one of the things that I was reasonably good at was recruiting and bringing good people around me. There was lots of things I was really useless at. So I'd bring better people than me.
So what happened? What happened 4 years ago?
Nothing.
Because the reason it makes me think of that is, recruitment. These are the people here, and we know, many of them who had turned on you. Many of the people you had recruited.
Well, they hadn't really. So the business grew. We were a small business. We had 20 odd shops in the UK. We had a big wholesale distribution where we called all the people that sold the product trustees of the brand. The people that sold our collections into their stores were guardians, and the consumer was a beneficiary of the product. So we had this entire insurance blanket over the way we traded. And about 30 years ago, the business really, really started to take off. From that little germ of an idea, I created a shirt.
Yeah, do you want to show it?
Yeah, why don't I show that shirt? I don't know if I've got one here.
Should we show it?
Yeah, they can just... I created a shirt.
This is the first shirt, is it?
It was one of the very, very first shirts. It was one of the material was really what it was all about. It was that one's just a plain small mini check, but it was the fabrication. That shirt, we then ended up making, it was beyond belief, really. It was the time of acid house, garage parties, late 80s, and we must have sold 3 million. And then we started to make a lot of money. And I didn't have a problem making a lot of money. I then thought to myself, what's the next step? We had about 20 stores. We were turning over £14 million, which wasn't nowadays when you think that's not a lot of money, but we were making just over £4 million profit. And there was the opportunity to go public being going on the stock market, opening the opportunity to institutions to buy the shares and the man in the street.
Scrutiny as well.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes with that. And Ted Baker went public and we floated the company. It's called a float, an IPO. We floated the business and the company suddenly became worth 58 million. Okay, and I owned 40% of the business. So suddenly I became wealthy. I came from just a everyday, comfortable background. I lived in co-fosters and my parents, saved up to go on holiday once a year, and we just had a nice living. And suddenly I was wealthy. And I left the money in the business. I took some off the table, but I left most of the shareholding in the business. And suddenly I had to then recruit finance directors, and suddenly get very, very serious. The actual rigmarole and process of going public is very, very, the long form reports. You wouldn't fit them on 2 of these desks. It was verification, what you could say and what you couldn't say, and it's very restricting. You had to give results every quarter. You had to meet shareholders twice a year, and we were public for 30 years. And I'm very proud to say we only ever had 1 profit warning.
You said to me, ask you whatever, because I think you're open to, you want to be asked this stuff. Because
absolutely.
So 4 years ago,
bit more, 5
years ago,
yeah.
It was during the MeToo movement. Lots of people were being sort of called out, and I guess it was almost a strange story because the other ones were sort of this cut and dry. A lot of them were cut and dry. This is what this person did. That's what that person did. With you, it was this kind of strange thing that happened, and then you were out, and it was to do with hugging mostly. You're a hugger. So what was going on there?
Okay, so I suffer with a condition, which I still have, but it's now managed beautifully, called psoriatic arthritis. My hands were incredibly painful. My hands were swollen like you wouldn't believe. If any of my old friends or colleagues saw me now, they wouldn't believe my hands as they are now, because I used to sit there all day long. My hands were 3 times the size. I'd use a system called magnetic resonance, MBST. In fact, it was so amazing. I bought the technology from Germany, and we're now helping other people with arthritic and inflammatory diseases. I couldn't use my hands. So I remember there was a guy called Philip who was running a retail group. And I'll tell you the name of the company. It was Moss Bros. He had the most devilish handshake ever. He used to come in at an angle and shake my hand. And I remember going back to my finance director and saying, that's it. I can't shake hands anymore. It is just too painful. I'm going to create a hug culture, because I can't shake hands. What am I going to do when I meet people? I'm just going to give them a nice little hug. Everybody in the fashion industry, in institutions in the city, my PLC board knew that I hug people hello. They weren't forced to hug me, for goodness sake. I can't shake hands. Do you want to hug hello? If they didn't, that's fine. Well, I went round saying to people, hug me or I won't be your friend. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
There was a hug circle in the...
By my desk, I created, because I didn't have my own office. There was no offices at Ted Baker. There was they ingrained into the floor hug zone. It was a hug circle that people were feeling sad. They could hug each other. They could hug me. And when celebrities came in, I've got a famous one of Shaq.
Shaq O'Neal.
Yeah. Shaquille is in there, right, with his girlfriend, have a hug. It was an instant piece. It was a brand piece. It was nonsense. Every PLC director, all the people that should have been with us, everybody hugged. Do you not hug people? Guys go in the pub, they go, hello, and they have a group hug or whatever. It was totally nothing. The issue was, it was not about hugging, because I couldn't find anything else. I will tell you the story. I've never told the story. I'm now going to reveal what brought down Ted Baker. There was an online petition. I didn't even know what an online petition was. I was 64 years of age. I just about could work an iPad. I never used a computer. Andrew, I built this £1 billion business. I never had a computer. People used to give me paperwork. I'd read it, but I didn't generate anything. And to this day, I do not have a computer. I had PAs, my friends, colleagues that helped me, and I did the business and was the extra, never the difference.
What was the name of this website they would...
Organise.
Yeah.
What they did, they managed to speak to somebody that was upset with the company, not particularly upset with me. It was somebody that could be in the business or had left the business to write a story. And the story was Ray Kelvin hug people. And that was it. They created a petition. I've spoken to lots of people, because I'm still in touch with hundreds of people at Ted Baker who worked at Ted Baker, who have now all lost their jobs, their lives more than their jobs. And no one signed it. Very few people signed it. People that signed it were anonymous people that anonymous people out in ether. No, very few people, if anybody. I don't know anybody signed it. Mind you, they're not going to tell me I signed a petition against you, Ray. But a few hundred people signed it in the world. I have on my mobile phone 20 signatures that have been faked. So there was a girl a woman worked at Ted Baker for a very long time. I won't disclose her name. She allowed me to see where she was thanked 20 times for signing something she'd never even signed. So they couldn't get the numbers, so they started signing themselves. And my board ran. My PLC board ran away from... So just to give you a feeling of the structure, when you run a public company, you have to have a board that sits at the top that makes sure that we're conducting ourselves professionally and in accordance with all stakeholders. I've known those people, some of them, for over 33, 34 years, the chairman 15 years. And they didn't have any executive powers in the business. They just made sure that we did the right things for all the stakeholders in the company. And I was always absolutely, you couldn't have had anybody that was more compliant. So it was all about compliance and the rules and regulations. And as soon as this all appeared in the newspapers, they weren't there for us, weren't there for the company, let alone me. And there was one person on the board who had her own agenda and engaged with Organise and then put herself out there as being the person that... I mustn't say too much. But it was very, very, very upsetting. So
Organise would say that, because it ends up being, it's like over 2,000 signatures, I think, now, if you look at it. And Organise say
world,
they do all they can to make sure that these are real signatures and they're from people who worked at the organisation. Now, I reached out to them to ask them, how do you do this? Yeah. How do you make sure? Are you, they can't speak about individual cases, but how do you ensure? How do you this and that? And I didn't hear back from them. So,
you didn't?
No, it's been a week or so. Now, it might be that they didn't get my email. They might not have, but it doesn't look good. It felt like they didn't want scrutiny. It was a nice email I sent. I wasn't pointing fingers.
I'll tell you something. Andrew, we've not spoken about this. You've just told me something.
Yeah.
Should never. These people set themselves up to help people in industry. Better conditions in the workplace. Andrew, 3,500 people lost their jobs.
Yeah.
The company was being destroyed. I know people that tried to commit suicide.
They fell apart when you left.
Then they had lawyers sitting there for a year. And then they had management that couldn't run the business. How could you run something? I mean, you got me sitting there. My wife sat next to me for 20 years. What the heck could I have been doing wrong? I will admit, I've never been. I'm 64 years of age. Overnight, the world changed. It was almost, I'd never heard of Me Also before. What's it called?
MeToo.
It's banned in our home. So if I say to you, Andrew, would you like to... did you enjoy? Would you like? And you said yes. No, it's Me Also.
I'm sure you'd agree that there are some good came from it. Some of the things that the light shed on some of the Harvey Weinstein stuff.
Well, I don't know. I can't speak for others. I can only speak for myself. And yes, I did put my arm around people when their dog died and their grandmother died, and I did help them out with this and that, and I did touch nicely. Did I ever sleep with anybody in the office? No. Were there rumours of me? No. Did I ever touch anybody inappropriately? No. Did I pimp models to my kids? No. I ended up, and I hope people realise this, I ended up on suicide watch My kids, I believe, I was so ill, ended up sleeping in my bed because they thought I was going to harm myself. That's how ill I became on the back of a petition that was trying to help making Ted Baker and other companies a better workplace. The irony of the whole thing was Ted Baker, and it's known in the industry, was the best company to work with and for. It was my dream. The minute we made enough money, I said to myself, how can I make this the best working environment? Do you know all those directors were there forever? Nobody ever left. Very few people left.
There was sort of murmurings after that. There were articles written, weren't there? They say it wasn't just hugging; you were sort of whispering in people's ears and things like that. Which, again, maybe that's your eccentric way.
Oh, I would say I would whisper. It's just stuffed completely out of context. I was very, very close to lots of people. If you've worked with people 10, 15, 20 years close and you travelled with them, you had special relationships. It was a fashion business. I was doing things that would be totally seen as inappropriate today. But at that time, it wasn't.
What kind of thing?
I would go up to somebody and say, is that Australian shampoo? Because I created that barber shop thing. We've got Ted Baker grooming stores that became the forerunner for grooming for Turkish barber shops all over the world and in this country. We've got 20 of those. Well, Ted Baker have 20 of those under license. And I know that a man, when he goes to have his hair washed or you buy shampoo for smell, probably. You're not buying it for texture or for dyed hair or where women do.
Yeah.
So I'd go around and go, is that the Australian shampoo? Is that whatever? And it was my way of, was this, and I didn't want to shout it, so I might have gone close and said, it was never, ever, ever done in an embarrassed, in a threatening way. This was all about me being close to people, and people observed. People never complained. Before the petition, Andrew, there were no complaints. There was nothing.
It was hard to complain, isn't it? I'm not talking about you specifically, but it's hard when you've got a cult, about the boss. Who's going to go and do that?
Yeah, do you know what, though? But we had an HR department, and if I ever went to upset anybody, I'd be the first, and I'd welcome people to come. We've got to continue learning. The world has changed, hasn't it? Look how I'm sure you might well say to your family, I don't know if your father's about, but if you might say, Dad, your mum, you can't say things like that nowadays. That's all it was. I know the chairman, when I left the business, my wife stayed in the company for a further year and a half. He hugged her when he came into the business, and she went, you can't hug me anymore. So, no, I'd like to think we ran a very democratic business. I understand your point. People wouldn't want to complain about me.
There were some of the people said things like, I've got a staff member said to ITV, Ray Kelvin would hug someone, he would hold on to them for a long time and would whisper things in their ear and kiss their neck. So you can see how, you wouldn't want your wife going to work.
Well, my wife worked with me for 20 years. Yeah. She's never reprimanded me and never told me off. And she's a strong woman. She's the backbone of our family. I've never kissed anybody's neck. I might have said, you look great today. And it was never that person complaining. It was always somebody that maybe saw it or somebody that had a grudge or was upset. Honestly, I'd never had a complaint.
It's funny. This is the hardest interview I've ever done because I find you really likable and you're nice and everything. But I can't just I was thinking, how do I do this? I've been nervous about it for days. I'm going, gosh, I don't want to give Ray too much of a hard time. He seems like such a lovely guy. But then I can't not say. And then there's these things. There's this other person. I felt his hands kind of gripped my shoulders and he gave me a prolonged, uncomfortable, awkward massage. It's kind of awful and I didn't want it. You feel helpless. You can't go to HR. You can't go to anyone. You can't go to the source because your fashion career is over because it's a small industry. That's the hard thing, isn't it?
Well, if I did any of those things, it would have come from a good place, like your grandpa would do to your grandchild, and it was in a friendly, nice way, not in a threatening way. And if I any time did something, I want to apologise for that now. If being Grandpa Ray, I at any time did overstep the mark, of course I would apologise. It's just me being friendly and being me and being kind, and I've not changed. I'm the same guy that worked in my grandpa's shop in the 60s in Enfield, where we would have hugged people, and that's just where it comes from.
Yeah.
No, my wife worked in the business. I'd never been with anybody in the company. I never, ever, ever approached her. I never went to Christmas parties. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I never went to the pub with anybody. I encouraged everybody to be respectful. I had to let people go when listen, I had to make tough decisions, Andrew.
You had people do burpees if they were late.
No, not burpees. Press-ups.
Press-ups.
That's fun.
Yeah.
It was late press-ups because we couldn't be late at Ted Baker. And if you saw people doing, we'd all have a laugh and say, well, was that a 2-minute press-up or 10-minute? Were 2 minutes late or 10 minutes? You did as press-ups on the length of time you were late. I remember going with my finance director to a meeting in the city with grey suited and booted men, bankers types, institutional chaps. And we were 10 minutes late. And I looked at him and to my finance director and said, practice what we preach. Down we go. And we did our 10 press-ups. And the guy said, what are you doing? We can't be late at 10 Baker. And the guy said, explain a bit more. Well, 1, it's rude. 2, it's all about commitment and commitment to others. Of course, at times you are late, but I wasn't late coming here. I would never be late. And our business was all about delivery, being on time. And I found it very, very disrespectful if you were late. And I explained that we ran that through the business. They bought 2 million shares. They invested £10 million, or I think it was around £10 million in the company based on the discipline of being on time.
I like that, and I actually, if that is done in the fun way.
Fun.
So this is it, and that's it. And I'm wary of being bamboozled by the sort of charming Grandpa Ray. So that's what I'm balancing in my mind, And so there is that story, of course, about you pushed a guy up against a wall.
Oh, let me tell you about that.
Okay.
I am Grandpa Ray. I've never used that before, but I'm tactile, I'm friendly, and I like to think myself very kind, and I built a business out of a family business. So maybe I've got to learn that it was a corporate, but I didn't want, maybe I resisted being corporate and I wanted to retain that family feel. Hard thing to do.
You don't push someone against a wall in your family.
Oh, no, I'll tell you about that.
Yeah.
Because he was family. So there was a story where a particular chap that left the business, I won't go into the real ins and outs, left the business. We fell out. He was, in my eyes, did something really upsetting personally. He came back to the business. I made him a director of the business, and he did exactly the same thing that he left the business for previously 10 years before. And he stepped towards me as if he was going to attack me, and I pushed him back. Now, you might be surprised at this, Andrew, but I'm pretty strong. And he went like that, and as I pushed him, he fell back. I was protecting myself because I thought he was going to go for me. And I've always been in life EMA, even in business. Early mover advantage. I wasn't going to wait for him to bash me. We had a terrible row in the office over something personal, and I pushed him away from me. And that was it. And he left the company. We've never spoken since. And he let me down on a personal level terribly.
What was that? Can you say, are you at liberty to say what that argument was about? Because I think I know, but I don't know if I'm at liberty.
It was over a wedding.
Okay.
About him getting married. And I don't want to go any further. I'm upset that we fell out. I mean, I looked after the chap. He got cancer, and I let him back in.
You weren't trying to stop him getting married, just to, because it might sound
like
that. It was about a chap who was getting married.
I was absolutely delighted.
So what delighted.
Oh, let's move. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So gosh, there is that woman as well who wrote an article. I'm sure you must have read all this stuff online. Did you read all this stuff?
Do you know what? It was so upsetting. I was in such a bad place. There's lots of stuff I didn't read because my lawyers, so-called lawyers, they just don't read anything. Don't read anything.
Is there that feeling that because I've had that when I suddenly realized that a thing that I thought somebody else was enjoying for a certain amount of time or whatever, I came to realize later they weren't actually enjoying it the way I thought. Is there's a kind of embarrassment? Do you have that or that regret?
Of course. I wouldn't go out of my way to do anything to hurt anybody. Why would I? I built a business. I've been in business 50 years and I've never had a complaint. 50 years. There was never a complaint at Ted Baker. It only came out afterwards. People could be very brave. I'm much prouder people said to me, why didn't the board say to me, I don't think you should hug anymore? They all knew I hugged. There was a hug circle. The whole world saw it. Everybody loved it. Why didn't they say beforehand? Why didn't they say when they saw me hug somebody, well, or HR, anybody say, I think you shouldn't do that anymore? I'm going to just, I've got a business card here. I'm going to bring this up.
Go on.
Actually, it's quite interesting. So I'm sitting with our lawyers, my lawyers, when this all happened, and I'm taking it seriously, but I didn't think the consequences would amount to what actually eventually happened. And this chap said to me, the lawyer said to me, he said, can I have a look at your business card? I said, sure. He looked at my business card and he went, and I've looked over and thought, what's he looking at? And I've got my darling Claire sitting next to me. I go nowhere without Claire. Claire's here now upstairs.
Claire's here on the table.
She is.
That's
she sat next to me. Well, I mean, the whole thing's just nonsense.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, Ted Baker. And he said, founder and closest man to Ted. I said, yes, I never wanted to be that corporate CEO, so I was the closest man to Ted Baker. He said, great. But let me have a look at your email address. And I went to Claire quietly. Claire, this could end up being a bit of an issue. She said, what? Email address. Do you know what my email address is? Should I tell you what it says? It says bedtaker@tedbaker.com. And it had been that for 30 years. How long has email been going? 28, 27? Yeah. Not one person in 30 years said that's not appropriate. Now, I've got a CBE from the Queen. So all over Buckingham Palace, wherever it comes from, the private offices, the Prime Minister's office, important people all over the world, my PLC board. Did anybody ever say to me, I think you should change your email address or it's not appropriate? No one in the world had ever said that's not a good idea to that fateful morning.
Well,
no one.
It's hard, isn't it, to say to the big boss, it is hard.
I'm very democratic. I mean, one of my businesses now is called Democratic Holdings. I've got interest in restaurants and the whole business. I still employ hundreds of people. I've never had a complaint. No.
It's so hard because everything I'm thinking, it comes from the lens of viewing it from today, isn't it? And I think you were working in an environment that we hadn't had that whole Me Too thing, and it was a different world. So I get it. I get what you're saying.
Andrew, honestly, honest. If somebody came to me, you might not believe this. I'm a maverick, I'm quirky. Someone's got to be the leader in the business, and someone has to be forceful and make tough decisions. But if somebody came up to me and said to me, that's not appropriate today, why would I want to upset someone? I'll change it. I want to learn. I used to go every day into business, and I still say it in my businesses today. Let's not do more. Let's do it better. Better would give us more. So if that's for betterment, I'm not one of those iconic, ego-driven, centric lunatics. It's my way or the highway. I'm just not built that way. Honestly, whether you believe it or not, I still get hundreds of letters. I've got a new business I bought called Sealskins. I didn't found the company. It was a company that specialises in waterproof. It's got a great narrative, and I've hopefully, with great team members of Ted Baker, who have all joined me, boys and girls are working with me, and we have a lot of fun building this brand into something very, very special. And we're coming every day for betterment, not more. And if one of those kids said to me, young guys, Ted Baker guys are not so young, but we've got, and said, you know what, Ray, that's not appropriate today. I'd say, would you explain to me why? They explained why, and I said, if it doesn't work, we're not doing it.
Have you? Do you think you have changed your behaviour since it all?
Behaviour? I never had bad behaviour. I've changed, and I'm now more aware. Come on, Andrew, do you not get caught up by saying things or feeling things? I'm incredibly sensitive. I would hate to upset anyone. Hate it. Detest it. I work with the public. I still work in the shops. I still stand in the sealskin shop. Saturdays, I'll be going there. I worked in the store yesterday, meeting customers. And they hugged me and I hugged them hello.
There was a woman who complained that you had discussed sex life too much in the car with her when you took her in a car journey. Do you know who that was? It was in one of the articles in The Guardian or whatever. It's a hard one. It's a hard one. A lot of it depends on this organised thing. I wish they had gotten back to me. I want to understand how can be thousands. And I know you say many of them have been faked.
No, not. I could show you that.
Yeah.
I have the evidence of a person saying, I didn't sign those, and the email trail. And that person went to the head of the brand and he didn't do anything about it. There's a lot of pantomime villains. I think that's probably too weak a way of describing them. I know what happened was when I left the business, the power vacuum started. I'm gone. And then all the infighting and all the upsets. And
Succession.
Yeah, there was a lot of people that behaved badly.
So that it was a bit of a coup to get you out.
Yeah, not to get me out. I'm not suggesting that. But when I was gone, I mean, do you know something? There was one person, who remained nameless, who took down our mission statement that had been on the wall for 40 years and posted it online. So could you imagine if you worked at Cadbury's, who's been in existence, let's say 300 or 400 years, and the Mr. Cadbury left the company for whatever reason, and you, Andrew, took down the mission statement and then posted it? Who would do such a thing? Why? All these people had opportunities, and what happened in the end? New management came in. Oh, I'll tell you something, Andrew, which is a very good point, I think. I haven't mentioned this. There's this thing which I didn't know of before, Glassdoor.
Yeah.
Regulated. It's a regulated
employee
online
satisfaction.
Yeah, platform.
Yeah.
I had a rating of nearly 90%. It was the highest on the stock market. Right? So there's always going to be somebody disgruntled. Somebody's going to make up something or take my words out of context.
Yeah.
And of course I made mistakes. Of course I said things that are not appropriate today. The new management, 50%, and people were made ill. I got emails and texts, rescue us. Please, Ray, rescue me.
I believe you.
Now it's been taken up by an American company and it's licensed, but I don't know how they're doing. But the period of when I say ruined, the period of when I was sitting at home watching it being destroyed, this business that I cultivated from my front room, seeing die of 1,000 cuts. Do you know, the design team that followed me had a meeting with me on the phone, and they gave me, I was going through on one occasion, because I didn't have another meeting with them because it was so disrespectful. They had thumbnail sketches that I could hardly see of the new designs. And these new people came in and took the brand and completely took it away from our consumer. Hopefully it gets back. I don't want to see Ted Baker fail. Ted Baker's in my DNA. You open up my veins, it's Ted Baker. It was my life, 38 years. I carried every piece of fabric into that business. I counted the buttons. I slept on the floor, Andrew, for 10 years. I didn't have any money.
Let me ask you this then, and I guess you can only speculate, but this all happened during a time when there was, well, like I think a lot of people were rightly spoken about, such as Harvey Weinstein. But being a Jewish boss of founder of a big company, do you think there was something of a witch hunt?
Yeah. Yeah. I think tall poppy syndrome, if you've heard that expression.
Yeah.
because I tried that out this week and said, well, that's tall poppy syndrome. And the young people said, never heard that. What's that mean?
Standing out and people want to cut you down.
Yeah. It's the tall poppy in the field, and that gets seen and gets going. Yes, of course. One of the worst things in life generally is jealousy. So I am a Jewish all the way through. I went to a Jewish school. I'm proud to be Jewish. I don't say it was just that. I'm wealthy. Don't feel sorry for me, even though I lost most of my wealth. I mean, it cost me in share value about 400 million over nothing. Lost 400 million in value. No one's crying for me. I don't expect them to. I'm fine. But I run a very modest life against how I could have lived. I don't have a Jim Palace yacht. I don't have the trappings of. I have a nice Seiko watch. I don't live a particularly big life. I drive a truck. I'm just an regular guy. I've never enjoyed seeing a display of wealth. I've got two beautiful boys who've always kept me grounded. Always. They're modest. They're bright. They're amazing.
Did you get lumped in with Philip Green?
I did.
And would you say you're chalk and cheese characters?
I'd like to think so. I don't use bad language. Especially in front of women. I can help the boys. It's slightly different, but I don't use bad language. I'm not. My weakness, I would say, the thing that I could do better is I'm incredibly passionate, and that could be seen as being angry, where it's passion. But then, look at all these amazing big bosses around the world running these trillionaire market cap businesses, Musk and all these guys. Look at
yeah, it's a difficult thing. Do you think
it's a difficult thing? Yeah,
we're trying to sort of regulate so much as we do in our society and try to make everybody fit into a kind of corporate world. We're losing out on the mavericks who can build companies.
Do you know what? I'm so pleased you brought that up. And as I said, it's not something we've discussed. Have a look right now. Talk to people in the city. Talk to stockbrokers. Talk to people in equity markets. There are no flotations. No one is bringing their companies to the stock market. And one of the major reasons for that is red tape, constraints, scrutiny, and look what happened to me. No one in the industry has ever said to me, you deserve what you've got. People just come up to me and said, Ray, we know you. We know your business. You've always been a proper person. We've never heard anything. But I sat on a holiday on one occasion, and I got a lot of, I didn't know this chap, but I got a lot of, I don't know if it was relief or just, wow. That made me feel so much better. There was a chap sitting having breakfast next table, and he looked across. I remember I never showed my face.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
Just from below you didn't, below your nose.
Because I wanted to be the brand, and I wanted to be about the business. He didn't want to be about me. I didn't want that. So they made out I was a stalker. He took shots at me as if I was leering on people. So this chap said to me, much my age, he said, you're Ray Kelvin, aren't you? I said, yes, I am. How did you know? He said, well, I've been in city briefings and I've listened to you talk. And then he said to me, I've never met this guy. He'd seen me, I didn't know. He said, you did nothing wrong. And I went, that's very nice of you to say so. Why'd you say that? He said, I'll tell you why. He said, I work in financial PR. Financial PR. I have never heard a bad word about you. There's never been a bit of smoke, a bit of fire. You can't wake up one morning and suddenly be a bad guy. And all this. It can't happen. There would have been a story before. There would have been a leak. There would have been people talking about it. You can't. I said, you know what? I can now enjoy my holiday a little bit better because it's the truth. But within that, when I think of the things, even that, bed taker at Ted Baker, you would say to me now, Uncle Raymondo, don't use that email address. Would you say that to me?
I'd say don't use the email address, stop hugging everyone, don't whisper in their ears, and don't talk about sex stuff, especially in front of women.
Yeah, but I would never talk to a woman about sex life. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yes. But from where I came from, where I watched Morecambe Wise go to bed together, where I watched Love Thy Neighbour, watched Steptoe and Son, watched the Black and White Minstrel Show.
There is nothing in the allegation, or any allegations, but there's nothing sort of Weinstein-esque. There is nothing, and what's difficult and sad, I think, for you is that because it all happened at the same time, you're just sort of lumped in there. But really, I think it's just you're quite an eccentric character, and you like hugging.
Well, only because I had bad hands. I only started that because Philip Mountford.
Yeah.
Hi, Philip.
That was the Moscow Ross.
Yeah, he shook my hand so strongly, and everybody in the industry knew I couldn't shake hands anymore. I said, I can't do it. Can't shake hands. And I created a spin on things to make people feel better. We had on-site massage. We had proper osteopath. So looking after people. Do you want to turn that into some leery back room? It's just nonsense. We looked after people. We had 3 great chefs making great food for everybody. We had our offices were in King's Cross. When we moved there, it wasn't a great area. So I got a minibus. I had a driver, and the driver drove in a minibus all the girls and boys to the tube stations in the area. That's how much we cared. We cared. I looked after people, girls that ran into trouble. Do you know, I don't know if I should. There was one girl in my office, worked in a shop, and she was taken seriously ill. And I remember my HR girl, HR director, come to me and say, so-and-so, I was terribly sick. And I went, oh, that's the most shocking story I've ever heard. That's tragic. Tell her that I know somebody who's an oncologist and will look after her. Anyway, they thanked me very much, but didn't take up my offer. A few months later, the girl was last legs, and you know what? I looked after that girl privately. Never met her before. In Harley Street Clinic for a year, or no, about 8 months until she passed away. They're the things people don't hear. What do they? And that wasn't me being magnanimous. It was quite to write a check. We did so much. The company did so much. We called it Teducation. We used to give people opportunities from all over the country to come and work at Ted Baker. We created a show and tell environment, like an X Factor with a queue outside, and they auditioned to get jobs. And they came in on a scholarship program that the ex-deputy head of one of the private schools around here, not far from here actually, Peter came and worked with us. He used to wear a cloak, and we had a proper little school in the company. It was amazing. How does that turn into lunacy? Don't ask me. Where we tried so hard to help everybody. We put so much time and effort into the deprived area of Silver. Is it Silvertown on the back of King's Cross?
Don't know.
We invested in the Creek Institute for Cancer. We helped the community. And then what do you get? He did. I mean, it's just.
Yeah. But it's tough, isn't it? Because those people back in the day, there were loads of them who did loads of, who did nice things for, philanthropic things, but then would, you know what I'm saying. So
then did bad stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't do bad.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about those people. And I don't even want to say their names because it's not fair to even say them in the same sentence as yours. But there were names of people who say, hey, look at the philanthropic stuff I did. But what they were doing on it. Did you have, it was sort of women sitting on your lap? Is that true?
There was one occasion when a woman had a really bad foot and no one would get up for her. And she'd worked for me 15 years. And I said, put yourself on there for 5 minutes. And she did, and she shouldn't have done, and I shouldn't have asked her. Now, when I look back on it, at the time, I'd known her for 15 years and she couldn't stand up. There was no chairs. We were just having a quick meeting. And actually, there had been a bit of bad feeling, I think. And I was just showing there was no bad feeling. And yeah, I made mistakes. We all do. But when you're the tall poppy,
do you remember the moment that you realised that this was going to be a big deal for you?
What, the company was going to take off, or this was going to end up this way?
That it was going to end up this way.
probably a week into it.
Was there an email that you got or something?
No, it was running nuts. Suddenly it just, like a bushfire. People were coming out with nonsense, and it just went on and on and on, and online and anonymous. And
Who first informed you of it?
There was a preamble with one of my colleagues told me there was one of the newspapers going to write an article, and they mentioned some of the names, and I said, well, don't talk to them. And I talked to him when I came back, and then he didn't remember the conversation, which bothered me slightly. I've never really spoken to him about it. There was something brewing, and then there was this petition. It was the petition, the notification of the petition, and then it was in the Sunday Times. The petitioners joined in with the Sunday Times, and they blew this whole story out.
Did you ever think in that initial moment, I'm going to end up having to step down?
No. I think it was when my board engaged with Organise made it worse. Whereas I think in a private company, I would have been told, look, Ray, times have changed. Times have changed. We've got to change. We've got to develop. We've got to listen. And I would have definitely done that. And it was all of us. It wasn't, even though I was the captain of the ship, I had a lot of other people in the business that needed to take responsibility and accountability for me and themselves. It wasn't just me behaving the way I thought was okay. Everybody behaved that way. And we should have sat down and said, or realised the world had changed, and we hadn't moved on as quickly. But it was very much an environment. It was that moment in time, wasn't it? Do you not think so?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I got caught up in that environment. Would that have happened today? No.
It was a moment in time, wasn't it?
I think so.
Maybe today there would be a conversation, and you would have to sort of change how you do certain things.
But it's all about personal development, isn't it? I mean, I'm not too old to learn. I'm not too old to improve. And I want to be at Sealskins and my other businesses. I protect others. I've got other businesses. I've got an interest in a fishing company, and I'm sitting there all day long saying to him, Ali and the boys in the restaurant, I've learnt a lesson. I've learned through this. We must make sure we're not ever seen. You're great guys. We just got to be careful in today's world that we don't ever offend anybody. But how can you not offend? I mean,
well, we make a point of deliberately offending on this show. So.
Well, how can you not? If you're running a business employing 4,000 people, you are going to get it wrong. That's why people aren't going public. That's why the businesses... People know when they're being threatened. Women know when they're being abused and when it's not correct. People know it. They feel it. There hadn't been anything prior to that had signaled to me that I had to change. It's now when I look back, because I'm now still running businesses. I mean, I had to go buy Sealskins because I had to create. I wanted to be back with the people, with the team.
How stressful and sad and upsetting was that week or month of how, when you had to step down relative to the rest of your life?
Probably, your family. My sister died at 52. She worked in the business. My parents died, and you expect your parents to die. I never expected to lose my business. Our business. It was a public company. I was a shareholder. I never expected to be hijacked out of the office by my PLC board and not being represented in the same way as the most junior person in Ted Baker. I was still employed. I was the CEO, and I got remuneration for doing a job. Shareholding is very different. It's a different thing to be owning and being paid. You got paid for doing a job, and I had ownership. It's two different things. I wouldn't have done anything to harm the company. I love the company and everybody in it so much. And to think that I was never, ever spoken to or investigated by anybody at Ted Baker. I was just thrust to lawyers, and we all know what happens then. Within 2 hours, there was lawyers. that's not going to end up well. Anybody that's unfortunately gone through a divorce knows. Yeah, and I think Ted Baker paid a few £1 million, and I paid quite a lot of money. What happened? Nothing.
A few million to who?
The lawyers. The lawyers got paid for doing the job, and they did their job. They felt fit to do that role, and I was just stuck in the middle of it all. I mean, I'd never really had the right to. This is the first time I've spoken about it, and I am nervous to speak about it because, I don't want any more repercussions or anything else to come out. But time has gone on, and I don't want to take this to my grave. I want to be able to speak up, be loud and proud, and be a proper person.
I've got one more question for you, but where can people find sealskins and all of that?
How kind of you to ask that.
Well,
that is nice of you. Sealskins is got a little shop in Marylebone in the West End. It's online. It's a dream. Be a dream if I built this back. It doesn't need to be an enormous business. It needs to be something that we can look back on, repair ourselves. There's a lot of people from Ted Baker in the business. I get notes every day from people, have you got a role for me? So we've got graphics from Ted Baker, design from Ted Baker, the finance directors from Ted Baker, who was a middle manager in Ted Baker, and she stepped up into a bigger role. The wholesale director from Ted Baker works alongside me for 40 years. I mean, you can't, I'd have been, if I'd have been a bad manager or not a good guy, you can't build a business to the size we built in the community by being thought being a bully or being obnoxious. It just couldn't happen.
Maybe you need to be a bit of a bully to build such a successful company.
Yeah, there's a way.
Going back to what we said about Elon Musk.
I hate bullying. I can't stand it. Bullying, no. I have to make tough decisions, right? It's very hard. It's a problem because people are running these big businesses and they can't be themselves. It's very difficult to be yourself because you're not going to get it right by everybody. And then they could say, I don't like what you did. I'm taking you to a tribunal. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm sure people, I'm not sure, I know. I speak to lots of big businessmen. They're frightened to open their mouths. That's not cool, is it? One's got to realise, everybody has to realise, we know when somebody's not a good guy. If somebody is not a good person, good woman, good business, complain. And complain in the right way. And get them to understand and help them to do a better job. It doesn't have to end up in nastiness. There's a way of complaining for the betterment.
Yeah.
Oh, and Andrew, I've got a book potentially coming out. Quite a lot of interest from different publishing houses that want to know even more of some of the exciting backstories. They want to call it I Used to Be Funny.
Do they?
Yeah, it used to be funny. I don't know, maybe Ray Kelvin by Ted Baker or Ted Baker by Ray Kelvin, or will the real Ted Baker stand up? But I did used to be funny, but you can't be funny anymore.
Who's a heretic you admire?
Golda Meir, maybe.
Go on.
Oh, she was pioneering. She was an everyday. I felt she was of the people. She spoke her mind. She was forceful. She was correct, and she was a proper old-fashioned leader. That's what we need today. Proper old-fashioned leaders. I don't understand. I don't want to get into politics because I'm not. I don't want to get drawn into subjects that are not my subjects. But why do they get into so much trouble by saying things and doing things that they just don't need to do? I don't get it.
Well, they could say the same to you.
They could, but I didn't do things knowingly.
No, well, neither do they.
Well, they do.
Do you think?
I think some people do. No, I didn't do anything knowingly. It's my personality.
See, my theory is I feel like most people don't realise that they're doing things that are going to upset other people.
Oh, yes. But that's not fraud, lying.
I see.
Filling in forms, but you're going to get caught out.
Yeah.
No, I of course, I mean, there's going to be, you're not going to be successful being anodyne, are you?
No.
If you're bland,
yeah,
how you explain how it's going to work? I don't know how.
No, that's the thing. I agree. Well, look, people, go and check out Sealskins. We'll have the link down below.
Oh, that's sweet.
We will do it. And it's some great stuff as well. I've been seeing it. So please go buy some stuff from there and let me know in the comments as well. This is one of the most difficult and intense and interesting discussions I think we've had on Heretics. What are your opinions? Let us know in the comments down below. Hit this like button and keep watching this channel. Thanks again, MyHeritage, for sponsoring the video. Don't forget to click the link or scan the QR code and use my code Andrew25 to get the kit for only $25 and more.